Good morning. How are you guys today?
Morning, Bill.
Outstanding.
Good. Good morning, racers. My name is Bill Little. I'm your Wing DPH, or Director of Psychological Health, and I'm part of our resiliency team. Well, these virtual drills are not actually the best way. It's not ideal. This isn't how we'd like to be addressing you. But since we have a great PA staff here and we have a great asset here, we're taking advantage of it and we're coming to you virtually. So we've decided that we'd like to address you by giving you a chance to ask some questions and then addressing those questions, and that's what we're here for today. So I'm bracketed by Colonel Bray.
Colonel Bill Bray, Medical Group Commander. Been fortunate to be out here on orders for some time now, since January. In my civilian life, I'm a family doctor, and I live in Lafayette, Indiana.
I'm Chaplain Kent Lundy, the wing chaplain here. I'm on Title 10 orders for FY20, and I love being a racer. I do.
We all do, I think. So we have some questions. You guys have sent in questions for us. We'd like to address a few of those in the time we have. Some of the questions are a combination because the questions were so similar. We just decided to address the topic instead of the question individually. So I think without further ado, let's let the chaplain take over.
Okay, so here's the question. What is the point of practicing the rituals of my faith if bad things are going to continue to happen to good people? So a classic question, right? That's on a lot of our minds and hearts at this point in what's going on in our world, right? What's the point of trying? So we do live east of Eden, as we know. We don't live in a perfect paradise. We live in a broken world where bad things happen, even to good people. And it's been said that life's not fair. And that's what makes it fair, right? That it's not fair. And so what is the point of continuing to try to do good in my life if bad things are going to continue to happen? Well, I want to encourage us to remember that just because we don't feel good doesn't mean we can't do good. So let me say that again. Just because we don't feel good about what's going on in the world around us doesn't prohibit us from doing good ourselves, personally doing good in the midst of the bad that's going on around us. Recently, you guys probably saw this in the news that Tom Brady, the new Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback, was kicked out of a city park in Tampa Bay because he was practicing his football rituals. He was practicing football. Did you all see that in the news?
I did, yes.
Yeah, that was
Who's Tom Brady?
Tom Brady, yes, okay, yeah. What's his name from New England days? But who knew that his football practice involved a swing set? I didn't know that, right? Apparently it involved a swing set because he needed a city park. But that got me thinking that here he is. His season is in doubt as far as when it'll actually start, but yet he was still practicing the rituals of his sport. And I thought, wow, that's pretty amazing. And of course, he's not the only athlete that's out there continuing to practice at home or in parks or wherever. And so that got me thinking that what we practice grows stronger. That what we practice grows stronger. And so if we practice hurt and anger and resentment and bitterness and hopelessness, those things will grow stronger in us. But if we practice joy, peace, patience, self-control, generosity, those things will grow stronger. So what we practice grows stronger. And so I want to suggest today that with our spiritual fitness pillar, that we need to continue practicing what we can in the rituals of our faith, however that looks in your faith. And so we need to do our part to control what we can control, to do good as far as we can, as long as we can. So such things as prayer, forgiveness of ourselves and others, reading sacred texts, acts of compassion and justice, all of these rituals that we are in control of, that even though things are not good around us, we can still do good. And I want to encourage us to do that. So how do we do that? So I want to offer three ways to do that. I want you to set extremely low goals. Please don't go into this practice of practicing the rituals of your faith thinking, oh, I'm going to do this an hour for the next 10 years, right? You're setting yourself up for failure. So think in terms of minutes, not hours. Secondly, make it a routine. Schedule it in your calendar. Tell your family and friends that you're going to do it so they can encourage you and hold you accountable. But make it a routine that every day at this time I'm going to spend 5 minutes practicing a ritual of my faith. And then lastly, be kind to yourself. Be patient with yourself. Take baby steps. You're not looking for perfection. You're looking for consistency until you form new habits. So again, what we practice grows stronger. And I want us in practicing the good things that we can control. Another image I want to leave you with are the waves of an ocean. If you want to picture the waves of an ocean coming at us over and over and over again. As you know, we can't control those waves, right? They're going to keep coming at us. They're going to keep coming at us. But what we can control is picking up a surfboard and learning to surf those waves. And I want to encourage us to think in terms of the rituals of our faith as that surfboard that we can pick up to say, you know what, I can do good in the midst of all the uncertainty in my life right now. There are things that I can practice, that I can control, that if I can control those and practice those, I can learn to surf those waves of my life in these moments of uncertainty. And lastly, I want to encourage us, if you are looking for a specific ritual, I want to encourage you to discover or maybe rediscover the Serenity Prayer. Now, the Serenity Prayer is a lovely prayer that's quite lengthy, and so I'm not going to read it all. In fact, this is kind of my interpretation of the Serenity Prayer, and I'll leave this to think about doing good even in the midst of bad things happening around me. So may we be granted the peace or the serenity to accept the things we cannot change. So those waves that are coming at us over and over again, may we be granted the peace to accept those waves. But may we be granted the courage to change the things that I can. So what things can I pick up? What surfboards can I pick up to ride those waves? The courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That's wonderful.
Thank you, Chaplain.
Thank you.
So, Colonel Bray, I'm sure, was inundated with lots of specific pandemic questions, but I think we decided to choose the questions that he gets hit with the most, which these three are the most revisited questions that we get from the resiliency team, I would say, and they're really good questions. I'm glad we chose those to address today. So, sir.
Sure. Well, we did get some good questions out there. So we'll start with this one, and this one kind of applies to each member of the team to some degree. Can you discuss the limits of confidentiality that each resiliency team member possesses? And so I'll just say on the medical side of the house, and before I go into that, each member of this team is available to you for any concern you have. And let's say you went to the chaplain first or the DPH first, and it was more of a medical type issue. They're going to do their best to, field what they can in their realm, but also get you to the medical side of the house, and vice versa. So if you came to me, for example, with a moral or ethical dilemma or a religious issue, then I would have you see the chaplain. But we're all available as a team, and in that setting, then we can also talk about a case or concern, if you will, and de-identify that individual if it helps protect that confidentiality issue. But we each, by virtue of our AFSC and profession, have a different level of confidentiality. So from the medical side of the house, you hear the term HIPAA, the Health Insurance Portability Act. We try to follow that. Military is somewhat exempt from that because commanders in mission have a need to know. But if it's whatever the medical issue is, whether it's something as simple as a sprained ankle on up into, heaven forbid, something like cancer, what we do is we take that information and we apply a profile for your commander. And that profile is absent of medical specifics. So what your commander or supervisor need to know is what you can and can't do. So whatever the medical issue is, can you be retained in the military? Can you deploy, for example? Can you do the PT test, and can you do your job? Those are kind of the four things your commander needs to know. And we do that in the context of a profile that basically is limited to need to know information, what you can and can't do, essentially. We also follow the Privacy Act of 1974, which safeguards your personal information. But we do need to take medical information and apply that to some sort of actionable profile by your supervisor. And that's kind of the context of what the medical limits of confidentiality are.
So as the Office of Director of Psychological Health, when people ask me about this question, I understand that there's a lot of anxiety sometimes, or maybe even fear about reaching out for help in an atmosphere where sometimes we equate seeking help with weakness, and I hate that. That stigma is something that we always have, surrounding us in a military environment, especially in an environment here where people are concerned that maybe their clearance might be affected by their inability to do their job, or their perceived inability to do their job. So if someone says, I have anxiety, I want to talk to somebody about that, or I have depression and I'd like to look into taking medication for that, is that going to disqualify me from keeping my job? When you speak to the Director of Psychological Health, that's me, the only information that I am really obligated to report to the chain of command is if you have said that you want to hurt yourself or harm someone else. Other than that, I do speak with the commander and the command team pretty regularly about not individual people who are seeking treatment, but more about trends, more about, I'm seeing an increased level of anxiety currently. Well, that's obvious. Yes, we are. And so is it surrounding the pandemic? It's possible, but it's surrounding a lot of things. There's a lot of unsurety right now. So I don't talk to the command team about specific things. We talk in generalities. You do have that right to confidentiality and the right to privacy when you speak to me. So, but just know, if you say that you intend to hurt yourself or commit suicide, I'm going to be all up in your business, okay? And if you say that you want to hurt someone else, then we have to take action, okay?
For the Chaplain Corps, it's 100% confidentiality. The privilege belongs to you, doesn't belong to me. So I am prohibited from AFI from releasing any information. And so that is 100% confidential. And that even goes for our religious affairs airmen, used to be called chaplain assistants. But if you approach us, either one of us, and share information, we are prohibited from sharing that without your consent. There is a way that if you give consent to release some of that information, we have to have a signed document that's witnessed to release the privilege of that information. But the bottom line is 100% confidentiality with chaplains and religious affairs airmen.
Okay.
Okay. Excellent answers from my colleagues, and that kind of segues nicely into the next one. Does the treatment of depression or anxiety affect my fitness for duty or my security clearance? Very good question. Very common question and very common conditions. In general, any condition applies a standard of, what is the condition, how severe is the condition, how much does it limit you from duty performance, and then what treatment plan and other things factor in, like how often are you maybe absent from the workplace to seek treatment and those kind of things. The rules on depression and anxiety specifically have become a lot more favorable over time. Currently, just to kind of cite what we call the medical standards directory, even if you're taking an agent for depression or anxiety, a medication, and it's prescribed by a primary care doc, there's no waiver or consideration needed. We just document that. And that's come a long way and more in line with most medical conditions that simply say, hey, as long as you're able to perform, that's okay. We as a team would hopefully not like to see things manifest to the clinical level. Prevention is worth cure, and nobody gets depressed or becomes clinically diagnosed with anxiety overnight.
Right.
Okay, so there's kind of a ramp up effect, if you will. If we can intervene early with the chaplain or the DPH, or resources that you have available to you, either military one source or on the economy. If you can intervene early, you can head off a clinical diagnosis perhaps. And that's what we want to do. We want to be there in your time of need early on, and maybe help prevent these things from manifesting. And I'll let you guys weigh in on that if you would like.
Well, I love that we address these two specifically because they are the most commonly asked about, anxiety and depression. Because, I mean, the Air Force population really is a good cross section of the population of the United States. Depression and anxiety are some of the most commonly diagnosed mental health issues in the world. So, but having said that, that means that there's also a lot of resources, a lot of time and energy that are being, put in this direction for treatment and for medical, but also the holistic treatment. We address it from all different angles because we understand that it's more than just a medical or prescription, right? If we can figure out a way to prevent the depression or anxiety with some coping skills or some self-soothing skills, or just a good examination of, learning the interaction of emotions and thoughts and how those impact one another. I love the fact that the 181st has their own DPH. I think it's a fantastic resource that I'm here on base for anyone to come and talk to for free, if it's about depression or anxiety or any of those issues. It's like having a built-in therapist, and I don't cost anything, and I don't have to tell anyone if someone comes to speak to me. But you can also just come and chit chat if you're concerned that you think you might have depression or anxiety. Then I would encourage you to come and talk about that, because we have to lift that stigma on these two topics, because as the doc says, it's not a disqualifier, anymore, depending on your ability to perform your job. It's how you perform. It's whether or not you can perform your job, right? So, sir, do you have anything to add?
I would just remind us that from a comprehensive airman fitness pillar standpoint, that the spiritual pillar is there, and by AFI that's defined as that which brings us meaning and purpose. And so would just encourage us to think about what does bring us meaning and purpose, especially when we're struggling with anxiety or depression, and to be able to find resources to reconnect to who you are on the inside. And for some, that might be a higher power or God. For others, it might be nature. But what is it that grounds you in who you are and brings you purpose and gives you meaning? That is that spiritual pillar of the four pillars of comprehensive airman fitness.
So our third question is, what level of security clearance does each member of the resiliency team possess? So, good question. In an ideal setting, we'd all have a TS clearance to be able to do our jobs to the maximum efficiency. Right now, the provider position is not coded for TS, so most of us would have a secret clearance. We are working on that issue. We've had visits from outside agencies that have said that, yep, that's what we need to do, and we're working on that, but until then, the providers you would talk to would have a secret-only clearance.
As your Director of Psychological Health here at the 181st, it's part of my job title to have a top secret security clearance. So I'm in process with that right now. I've been here since January, and that's a lengthy process. So I'm not sure where it is, but hopefully I'm going to get a positive result here very soon, and you'll see your DPH able to interact with you on the operations floor. But in the meantime, until I do get the top secret security clearance, come see me in Building 3. My office is kind of around the corner from the break room there, and just across the hall from Chaplain Lundy. And we can talk about things in generalities at this point. We can't speak specifically about mission-related items, but please don't let that stop you from reaching out for help if you need it.
And I have a top secret clearance as well, excuse me, that goes with the position of being the wing chaplain.
Great. Wonderful.
Okay.
All right.
Those are my questions.
So now I have a question. Actually, I received more than one question about this topic, and so I've kind of combined them together into one question. And I'm so glad that these individuals reached out to talk about this topic, because there's a lot of shame involved with this, and it keeps people from seeking help. And so the question revolves around with such easy access to pornography over the internet, telephones, computers, this person or these individuals wanted to know, how do I know if I have a problem with pornography? So, like I said, this is a great topic, and it's so difficult for some people to talk about because of the shame and the stigma. But pornography addiction is actually is a real thing. We would consider pornography addiction in the category of addictions known as process addictions or behavioral addictions, because it's not you're not taking something into the body like a pill or a powder or a liquid. You're actually creating the chemicals within your own body by engaging in a behavior, something like pornography or sex addiction or gambling. Those are examples of process addictions. So I just have some tips that I'd like to go through here. So if you feel that you may be having an issue with pornography, these are some things to consider, okay? So if it looks like pornography has taken the place of healthy sexual relationships, if you choose pornography rather than engaging with an actual sexual partner, it may be time to consider that you should reach out for help about that. If your significant other is uncomfortable with your use of porn, if you have a significant other, or if you find that you're hiding your use of porn, you're deleting your web browser, and this is where the shame comes in. If you feel that it's an issue in this way with your significant other and it's causing relationship issues, then it's time to seek some help and maybe speak to a counselor about that. So if you watch porn in inappropriate places or at inappropriate times, let's say maybe you sneak off during the workday into the latrine and look up some pornography on your phone, or go out to the parking lot during lunch and you find yourself looking at pornography on your phone. Those are inappropriate times and places. So that may also be an indication that it's time to reach out for some help. So if you use porn instead of seeking relationships with real people, let's see. That kind of goes along with the first one we talked about, but it's different in that if you are isolating yourself and you'd rather focus on the fantasy that is part of the pornography rather than an actual physical connection with another human being and developing a meaningful relationship, that's an indication that pornography has become an issue with you. So if you find that you're becoming desensitized by regular pornography and you seek out more bizarre or degrading acts, this may also be a time to reach out for some help. Pornography addiction, just like any other addiction, there is a type of desensitization. You'll become accustomed to it. You'll become used to it. You'll require more and more different kinds of it, I guess, just like a drug or any other type of addiction. And so if you find yourself reaching into the deep recesses of some bizarre pornography, it's probably time to reach out for some help. If you use porn in a way to make yourself feel better, as perhaps a way to ground yourself or to self-soothe if you're feeling depressed or anxious, just like someone might reach for a security blanket, or someone may take a drink. If you're reaching for your telephone to look at some pornography to make yourself feel better, then it's probably time for us to look at that issue. So, while for some individuals, pornography may be a moral issue, but it really is. It is as much of a health or a physical or physiological issue as much as anything else, Doc. Can you talk a little bit about the chemical interactions and what's happening in the brain?
And Bill did a good job there of alluding to the physiology involved, and just like any other addiction or pleasurable activity or dependence or anything else you might engage in that creates that kind of dopamine surge, which gives you that pleasurable effect and that release. But over time, you can deplete that dopamine, and then and that one of the chemical messengers of the brain, and that's where your desensitization occurs, and maybe the inability to be intimate with a partner or something like that. It's been studied. It continues to be looked at. It's not an easy thing to study for some, but the parallels with other addictions are evident, and just like anything else, and the ramifications are well understood.
Mm-hmm. Sir, do you have anything to add?
I would just say from my faith perspective, human sexuality and specifically the act of sex is a gift from God, and is a good gift from God that we believe should not be abused with the use of pornography.
So I really want to address the shame and the stigma that goes along with pornography. Many of us know people who are recovering alcoholics or people who have been addicted to drugs, and they may say, I'm sober, I've been sober for this many days, this many weeks, years, but you very rarely will hear anyone talk about, oh, I've been sober from pornography for 6 months now, because there is a lot of shame with it. But I would encourage you, if you're having an issue like this or any other behavioral addiction or process addiction, here's the thing. It's treatable. We can make progress in much shorter time than you might imagine. And if you're actually concerned about it and you want to make steps in the right direction, come see me or seek out another mental health counselor, and we can see positive results very soon. And I would encourage you to do that.
I would add too, I'm not aware of any. I think there are zero, as far as I know, of medical implications of this. So fitness for duty and or security clearance issues don't need to be a factor in your seeking help if you need it.
Right. Well, gentlemen, I think we've covered our questions. I sure do appreciate the two of you showing up today, and us as a resiliency team being able to address your airman questions. Your 181st Resiliency Team is here for you. We're all available. I'm available 24 hours a day by either phone, text, or email. And I know our other resiliency team members are equally as accessible. So I encourage you, if you have an issue and you're not sure who to talk to, reach out to any one of us and we can move you in the right direction. So I will just, with that, I'd like to sign off. And I hope you're having a good virtual May drill. And hopefully, let's see your shining, smiling faces in June or July.
Perfect.
Amen to that. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.